Good morning, friends. I'm making this video as a shortcut for students to be able to install PySpark on a Hadoop environment in a Windows operating system. You would have already received a detailed installation instruction in the classroom. This is just a supplementary material to show you how it is done. It all starts with a clean machine, and somehow it is very version sensitive. So I'm going to suggest that you check your current installation before going ahead. So you do that by typing appwiz.cpl in your run command, which gets you to the control panel section of programs and features that are currently installed. Make sure that you have no other versions of Python, Java, Scala, 7-zip running on your machine. These are the tools that we're going to install, and we're going to pick the very recent version. So we wouldn't want to have multiple versions, so when there is something going wrong, it's easy for us to troubleshoot. It's more for a comfort rather than a mandatory requirement. So I don't have 7-zip. If I scroll down a little bit, I don't even have Java. I have Kubernetes, but that's okay. I have Python. No version of Python is seen. No version of Scala is seen. And JDK is also out of question. So I have a very clean machine, in other words. So I'm going to proceed with installing all the tools that I need one by one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with downloading the 7-zip tool. So you can see that this is the download page for 7-zip, and it basically asks me to download different versions. So you can see that there is download versions for a 64-bit x64 architecture machine. Mine is that, so I'm going to say download. And I need to put this in a folder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a folder called B2021. So all that is necessary goes and sits inside. 2023, sorry, I'm behind time. So I'm going to create a folder called B2023, and I'm going to save those installation files there. So the first file that I've saved is 7-zip. The next file that I need is JDK, Java Developer Kit. So I'm going to open the website that gets me to this Java 7 downloads page. So of course, for some of you, it may ask you to sign up. For some of you, it may ask you to accept license. I'm already logged into my Oracle account in the cookies, so it doesn't ask me anything. So I just go ahead and scroll down. Here you can see that I have a 64 installer and a compressed archive. I would prefer the installer, so I'm going to choose download JDK 11.16.1. So when I select that, it asks me for an acceptance of agreement. I do that and I click on download. And the moment I click on download, it's going to take me on into the sign on page. I'm going to use my cookie credentials and sign in. In your case, you may have to create a new account. So I'm going to store this file also into the same B2023 folder. So I click on save. So that gets me downloaded. The second file is now downloaded. The third file that I need to look at is basically a shortcut for Windows operating system utils. So you can see that I'm going into the WinUtils tool, and the version that I'm picking up is 3.3.1, seems to be the latest, because I want to set up an environment that is equivalent to Hadoop 3.3. Okay, so that's why. And I have winutils.exe file. I'm going to right click this and save the link as exe file inside the B2023 folder. So I'm going to say save. The next job is to open up the Spark framework. It comes in as a zip or archive in Linux format. So I got to choose the relevant one. That's why I needed the 7-zip tool in the first place, so that I can uninstall that clearly. So I'm going to go with whatever is the latest, which is 3.3.1, and Hadoop 3.3 should be good enough for me. So here you can see that there is this file name which is called as Spark 331. Okay. So what I do is I basically try to save a copy of it. So I'll just right click and say save link as. So you can see it's a tar compressed zip file. I'll put it inside the same folder. I'll save. So Spark is also downloaded. The next thing I would need is a Scala compiler. Okay, so this is to compile the Spark codes, because Spark runs on Scala compiler. So when I go to the Scala version, the latest one, 2.13.1, which is the stable release, I scroll down a little bit, and then I will be able to see the Microsoft installer, which is the easiest way to download the file. So I'm going to select that and store it inside the same beat directory as well. The last one that I need is a Python compiler. So when I open up the Python link, it gets me to 3.11.1 Windows version, which is roughly the recent one. So when I scroll down, you can see that I have a lot of installers. Again, I'm going to pick a 67-bit installer. Okay, so when I select that, it gets me an installer package. So I'm going to save that as well. Now, to work with the codes, I would need an IDE. And for that, I'm going to pick PyCharm. So I click on the latest version of the PyCharm download page, which is this. Here I have two options. One, I can go for a commercial version, which is professional. Other is a community. So if you don't have an NUS ID, you can easily go and download the community edition. For our labs, I think community edition is more than enough. But if you're keen to try a professional edition, you may have to log in first, create a NUS email ID based account. In my case, I've already created one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and try the download page, and I'm going to see how the professional works. So I'm just trying to download the professional. So again, into the same folder. Okay. So these are the 7 main pieces of software that you need, and you basically put all of these things into E drive and in the folder called Beat 2023. So you have all the 7 pieces of software downloaded. In fact, the last one is still downloading, which is PyCharm. Give it some time, it should be done. Okay. So you can see, yeah. So PyCharm is also done. So you will have all the 7 pieces of software that you need. Now what we're going to do is we're going to install them one by one. Not a big deal, but there are a few things that you got to notice about it. So if you are done with all these things, you should be having an error-free setup for further workshops and demonstrations. So the first one that we try to install is 7-zip. So I'm going to double click on 7-zip. It gets me to the installer window here. This one, I think I can accept all the defaults. So I'm going to click on install. It goes through the installation page. And then once it is done, I close. So it's as simple as that. The next one that I want to set up is JDK. So I double click on the JDK installation. You can see that it shows me again a credential acceptance page, after which the installer starts. It will look something like the window that you're going to see now. So this is the default window. I'm going to accept all the default values. I won't change the installation folder. Save program files is fine. And then it takes a bit of time to go through all the installation processes. And once the installation is complete, it gives you a window with the close button. So you got to wait for that to happen. If you want to go into the documentation, you go into next steps. In my case, I'm not focusing on Java codes. So all I need is just the platform. So I've installed JDK and I close. So the next installation is Python. This is a bit tricky. So you got to change the default installation steps. So watch out on the changes that I do. So when I select the Python installation, you can see that there is a default installation and then there is a customized installation. The default installation sits only on your user ID. So in my case, my user ID is Surya. So you can see it goes to C, Surya, local programs and Python. So if you do this, what happens is there are some privilege issues when anybody else wants to try to run the codes, or even when you want to run the codes from some other folder. So a more easier way to allow the Python to be centrally installed is to choose custom installation. And before choosing custom installation, make sure you add the Python executable into the system variable path. So you do that by checking the add python.exe to path, and you select custom installation. So this is the first change that you got to do. On the optional features, you can see that by default all the options are ticked and you're fine. You go into the next one. Here is where there are some more alterations. You want to install 3.11 for all users of your desktop. So select that, and immediately you will see that the customized installation folder has changed to C program files Python 3.11. Okay, so this makes it safe. There's no privilege issues when you later run your PySpark job. So you should be happy. If you want to have additional download facilities, you can check that. I'm not going to use them, so I just leave them aside and then start my installation. Again, this goes through a credential check, and when the setup is complete, it gives you a close button that completes the Python installation. This may take a minute or two, depending on how your desktop is working, either speedier or slower. So take your time and complete the installation. So you can see that it has got a set of libraries that it has to completely install. So it's doing that one by one. Give it just some time. So it's all done, and you can finish the setup by clicking the close button. The last piece of language compiler that you need would be Scala. So Scala, I don't think you have to change much of the default installation. You can go with the flow. So I'm going to select Scala 2.13.1. So accept the next step in the wizard. Accept the license agreement. Select next. And this is going to install all the needed facilities for me. So I select next. So this is getting ready for installation. When I start the installation button, you can see that the installation goes through. Again, after a credential question. And once the installation is complete, it's quite fast, just like JDK. Once the installation is complete, it's going to give me a finish button. I click that to complete the installation process. So Scala is also done. Now you remember we had this WinUtils, and we said this is going to be the equivalent of Hadoop executable files. So you use that to sort of set up how to translate certain of the command prompt Linux shells to work on the Windows platform. So to set this up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this file. I'm going to go to the C drive. I'm going to create a folder for WinUtils. I already have one. I already have a bin folder. I have some Hadoop files here, so you will do that later, but right now all you need is only the WinUtils, so I'm only going to use it. So I repeat again, in the C drive, you create a WinUtils folder, you create a bin folder, and inside you just park your WinUtils. Okay, so check for the size. Is something roughly 40. I don't know whether it is the right one or not. It should be some 204 kilobytes. I don't know why this is a bit small. Let me check. I doubt it should be 204 kilobytes. Okay, if there is any issues running my code, I'll just come back and chip in to see if the WinUtils is the right version. Normally it's 204 KB. This one 140 is a bit shocking, so maybe I have to upgrade my installer link. Never mind. So I go ahead with the Spark installation next. So for Spark installation, I have to use the 7-zip. So I right click the file 7-zip and then say extract here. So you will see that this is 29 kilobytes to 4 AM. So when I say extract here, it creates another zip file, which is slightly of bigger size because it's a double compression. So when you say close, you're going to likely see, oh my god, what did I do? Right click, 7-zip, extract here. Again, this is also not working. That's because this is too small. It's supposed to be 290. Let me check if I downloaded the right version. I delete this. I'll go back to my download page, which is one is correct. 3.2 year later, pre-built is right. Then I select this. I don't say right click and save. I have to click that. Right, that's my mistake. Okay, so I double click it here. Sorry about it. So I gotta save this. Okay, so you can see it's a slightly bigger file. I was surprised it was only 29. It's around 292 kilobytes. This is good. So I'm going to select this, right click to 7-zip and say extract here. So you can see that it creates another file which is of slightly bigger size. Okay, so again I go to zip file and say extract here. It's a double extraction. Okay. And you can actually delete the temporary file that was created because it's of different format and confusing. So here you have the full folder structure created under Spark 331. Okay. One thing that I like to do is to put it inside directly under the C drive. So I'm going to select Control X, copy this, go to my PC, C drive, and then I'll delete all the other versions. I've been trying many versions in the past 2-3 years in my desktop, so let me just delete all that so that it's not confusing. Since COVID, I've been teaching too many batches, so you'll find many old versions on my PC. I'm just deleting all that, and I'm trying to move only the recent version, which is Spark 3.3.1. Give it a minute or two that the file copies directly to the C drive. And that is it. You are ready with all the basic software. Except for the IDE, you have all the other prerequisite installed. Now the final step is to set up the path. Okay? So though you have done certain things using the installer, certain things you have unzipped the file and you have put them in the C drive. So it is time that you connect all these things in a proper fashion that the machine understands it. Okay? So how is it easy to do? You just have to look into environment variables. So there are a few ways in which you can work on the environment variables. You can select your PC and go into manage and then look at properties. You just right click and go to properties, and then you can look into environment variables. That's one thing. Or all you can do is you can look into type in as environment variables. So you will see that it says edit system environment variables in the control panel. You can select that. This is the easiest. So you click the environment variables, and there are plenty of variables here, as you can see. Okay, so you don't need all these things inside your Spark. So I'm going to delete all the old tokens or paths that I've created here. So I don't have anything. Okay, that's fine. So here also you can see that I've been trying Erlang home. So let me just delete all this. Spark home delete. Hadoop home delete. Okay, so all the old variables are deleted. It's time that I start creating new variables. And all the variables that I want to create, I would like to create it on the system variables, not the user variables. User variables is specific to one user. System variables is global. So I prefer to create them here. So I'm going to say first one is Java _home. So that's the first variable that I want to set it up. So I come here, look for the Java installation, which is C, program files, Java, and JDK. So this is the version that I've installed. So I select the path, and then I put that into this variable setup. So that's my Java home. So Java home is created. The next variable that I want to create here, so is Java home created? Yes. Next variable that I want to create is Hadoop _home. Okay. So I did not have a full-fledged Hadoop installation. Instead, I have put in the C WinUtils. So I'm going to point to just that C WinUtils folder, and I'll just copy this. into my system variable. Okay, so that's the second variable that I create. There's a third variable I create, which is called as the spark underscore home, and this should point to the right Spark folder. Okay, in my case, it's going to be C 3. Okay, so this is the Spark home folder. So I copy that into. Okay. The next main work is editing the path. So I'll just go to the path window and see all the variables that are there, and only edit those that I have to. So Python 3.1.1 is already on the path, which is on the top 2, which is good. I don't want to touch that. But you can see I have older versions of Java that was created because of my previous installation. So I'm just going to delete it so that I don't have too many versions of Java inside. Do I have any other Java installation? Let me check. Okay, no other Java. So I'm going to add a new Java variable. I'm going to say percentage Java underscore path percentage / bin folder. Okay, so this is one thing that I want to add. Okay, so let me go back. I accidentally picked up, so I'm going to move this. I'm going to keep it as high as Python because these are very basic installers. So just like Python, I want Java to be working at the highest possible work folder. Okay, so that's the second thing that I got to check. So I have Python, I have Java. Now all the rest of the things are additional. So that is starting with Scala. Scala is already in. I have to add in Hadoop home and Spark home. So I'll say new variable. I'm going to say percentage Hadoop underscore home percentage / bin to add the WinUtils folder. I'll add one more variable. I'm going to call this as Spark underscore home percentage / binary folder. And that's pretty much it. So I got Python, I got Java, I got Scala, I got Hadoop, I got Spark. Okay. And when I install PyCharm, it will normally go and sit inside the folder. 7-zip doesn't have any path necessarily set in. It's already inside the system settings. So I'm completely through and all my path variables are good. Now this is the point for me to check if my environment is okay. So what I can do is I'll open a command prompt, okay, and then in the command prompt I can see how my basic languages are working. Okay, so that's a very easy way for me to test if my software is working as expected. So I can say Java minus version to see if the Java is recognized. It's not recognized, so which basically means there's something wrong in the environment variable. Let us check it again. Environmental variables. So is Java home pointing to JDK 11.6.1 correct? So when my path is coming edit, it is not Java path, it's Java home, right? So that's a typo. Okay. So sometimes you say something and you type something. Stupid of you. Okay, so that's the problem. So I've got to apply this and open another command window to test it. So Java minus version should tell me I have JDK 11. So one down. The next thing that I want to check is Scala. So I'm going to say Scala minus version. And we know that the Scala that we have installed is 2.13.1 and that shows up. Great. So what about Python? I have to say minus version for Python. And Python is 3.11.1. So great. All the languages are set. This is good enough. So we will proceed to see if the Spark shell works. I can say Spark -shell. So this should start the Spark shell. It takes a minute or two, but you can see that it sets up all the variables and starts the Spark framework for me. So you can see that it is adjusting the log levels. It's starting to set up a little bit of Spark framework code. It asks me to accept firewalls, which I do, and then it shows you the version. Okay? This is great. And you can see that the UI is available at 4040. Okay? So there'll be a bit of native code loader. That's because we have not completely installed Hadoop. Later on in one of the exercises, I'll show you how to install the Hadoop libraries on Windows platform. Then you will see that this warning is gone. Until then, you will have this warning. So just ignore that. So if you want to test, what you can do is you can take up any browser. Just say http:// localhost 4040. So you can see that it immediately shows you the Spark dashboard, which is good. You've not done any jobs, so all the graphs are completely empty. Later on we'll see how to use this and how to set it up and all that. So this basically shows that your installation is perfect. You can close this command window. When you close this, it terminates. So after a while you will see that the Spark shell also is gone. So open another command window. This time we want to check the Python version of Spark. So just say PySpark. So this should start the Python Spark shell for you. Again, it takes it up a couple of seconds, and then you will see that you will have the same native warning, which is fine. Just ignore that. This time you get a Python compiler to submit Spark job. So this is also fine, right? So you can see that it again opens it up at 4040. So when you brush it up, you can see that this time it is Spark shell, not the normal Scala shell. So that's good. So this is also working. You can terminate this by saying Control C or Control Y. Or you can say exit of 0, I suppose. Yeah, so that should terminate your Spark shell. So this basically means your Spark framework is working as expected and everything is fine. So you can close the command prompt. Until so far we are very good. So the last part that is left is PyCharm. So I go into the folder and I want to start the PyCharm. Here also I customize a bit, so you've got to watch out for the options. So when I go into the PyCharm Professional Edition here, takes a bit of time. I got to select a few things so that it's easy for me to associate Python files. And for a proper installation, I may have to reboot the system. Okay. So that's pretty much the expectation here. So the wizard has started. I'm okay with the default settings folder. So in the next, I don't change the install location. But when it comes to installation option, I'll want a shortcut. I also want the path to be added. I want the open project, open a particular folder as a project. I also want to associate all Python files to PyCharm. This is just for my comfort. If you're not very comfortable, you can skip everything. Just have your desktop and bin path. That should do. The rest of the things are default. Okay, so then I can click on installation and the installation happens. But here's the caveat. If you want to try PyCharm immediately, you may have to reboot your machine. Okay. So I'll wait for the screen to pop up. I'll show you the reboot options and pause the recording and continue on once the IDE restarts. So this may take a minute or two. So here is where I may have to stop my recorder, because I have to reboot my machine. I don't know if I can continue recording. Either way, I'll just try to pause my recorder. I have to select reboot now option so that I can start creating a project, and then I'll show you how to set up PySpark inside PyCharm. Okay. So I'm going to stop my recorder here, and if this doesn't continue, I'll make it as a part 2 video. Just bear with me on this.